Hey Mum, tell me again how you and Kiko managed to survive the fall of the Templar kingdoms.
Well, after Ryo, Nora and Valor left the Anand Citadel, they travelled northeast through the wilderness before coming to my village. At that time there were only a few Haunt soldiers there, as most of them were sieging larger cities in the area. They had come in about 2 years prior and had begun occupying our village. The Haunts tried to attack them and they slayed them right there. They then told us that they were going to move on, but I wanted to join them. I needed to be a part of whatever fight they were going to take to the Haunts, whatever sort of rebellion we would put up. My parents wanted me to stay, and they're probably still there. Our family had lived in that town for generations. That's where your grandparents probably still reside. As we were leaving, Horst, the town blacksmith, would give us some armour for our travels, since theirs had been damaged by travel and battle, and I had none. A couple weeks into our travels, we would find Kiko nearly dead in a mountain pass. All he had told us was that he was left there to die by some Haunts after he had defended an elderly woman that they were trying to harass. We would patch him up, and a month or so later we would arrive at Old Myers.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 12th episode of the Medieval RimWorld series. I'm so excited for this one, as I was having so much fun playing after the last episode that I just kept recording straight on after episode 11. As a side note, I think I'm starting to get a little bit quicker with my process of recording, editing and uploading, so hopefully there will finally be a weekly upload schedule around 6 PM Australian Eastern Time. But getting into the actual video, we're once again in the so-called snake-infested ruins, although we haven't seen any snakes yet, working our way through the rubble and bandits to see what this dungeon holds. Now, this took quite a while to explore, and I'm not going to do a play-by-play for you guys, as that would be pretty boring to commentate, but also pretty boring to watch, so I'll just give you the rundown and focus on a few particular moments of interest. For most of the time that we were in here, we would have our characters explore in groups of 2 or 3 at a time to assist with managing fatigue while we're out here. When people weren't working, we would have them go back to the area we explored last episode, where we had set up a few beds in one of the rooms. The first pair out and working was Dux and Danders, who would work their way through much of the western side of the ruins, coming across a few bandits, and almost end up cooking us, as Dander's halberd would set people on fire with the sapphire magic. This began to heat up the inside of the ruins, meaning that Valor had to go and deconstruct the entrance. We would then swap over to Danders and Edmund, as Dux was getting a little bit tired. These two would begin looking a bit further east in the ruin, encountering more enemies that we would promptly deal with, slashing them to pieces. During our search in this direction, we would find a ruby skull in one of the reliquaries, as well as a number of valuable or interesting weapons. As we continued pushing through the ruins, coming to a royal-like dining room, we thought we had perhaps found the place in this castle where the nobles would have resided in its glory days. I should note that each night during this campaign, we would stop to let everybody rest to prevent them getting fatigued. Meanwhile, back at home, there would be no rest for our colonists, as we had another very large raid from the House of Celestia. Thankfully, they would set up for a while, giving Ernest the chance to launch a couple of magical attacks at them, which would significantly weaken them. So much so that after a very short assault, they would end up fleeing. The only person being downed would be Ernest from outside, and of course we would get to take some more prisoners for the working camps. But returning to our adventure, the whole group was up the next morning and would begin to work through basically the entirety of the northern part of the ruin. It got a little bit micromanagey here, so I ended up missing a fair bit of it, but I'm pretty sure that 2 areas that were explored were mainly this prison area and a storage area as well. It also seems that by this point, many of the people trapped inside this dungeon, probably due to cave-ins or something like that, I figure that since we've come across so much rubble, most of these people were running out of food, meaning we were coming across a lot of corpses or downed foes, rather than enemies that would attack us, which sped up our search significantly. Taking a quick look back at the map, you can see that we've explored around half of the ruins so far, but there's plenty of treasure left to find here. We would move through the middle of the ruin, working our way through the eastern wing, pushing our way into several rooms at once, as we knew some of the Celestian reinforcements would arrive soon. Our heroes would execute several of the bandits who threatened to stop our exploration, cutting heads and sending spears through chests, whatever we needed to do to complete our investigation of this mysterious place. Looking at the map, once again, we have made it through most of the map this time, finding one area in particular with some very expensive royal loot. But we aren't the only ones here for the golden jewels of this ruin, as a House of Celestia raiding party have arrived, entering the front hall, being met by Cryos, who would spit fire to slow them down, igniting several of them. Our fighters would spring into action, meeting the raiders in the doorway, where a mosh pit-like fight would break out, Cryos being at the center. Ryo would take the lead in the battle. Dux would also really shine here, killing 2 of them with his mighty warhammer. We wouldn't allow them to simply escape, with Cryos chasing one of them down and finishing them off. But returning to our search, we would enter a room deep in the ruin, finding a lindworm that had apparently starved. Not sure why it didn't just break down the door and try to leave, but okay. Since we were planning to leave fairly soon, we would organise for Brim to come over with some additional caravan animals to help haul all the new items we've collected during this campaign. Working through the final sections of the ruin, we would break into several more rooms, finding a pair of final foes that Danders and Edmund would finish off. Thus we claimed the ruin for our own. And with that, we would begin looting, finding this named plate armor with 188 sharp, 91 blunt, and 107 heat protection, which is crazy good for medieval armor. We will have to consider who gets this piece. We would continue looting, working our way through the royal area, finding jewels, gold, and more, including this noble polearm scroll that will help with our research. Bring would arrive at the ruin, but the slave that she brought had decided to rebel as she got there, so she had to shoot it down real quickly. As we would begin to pack our caravan animals for the long journey home, I just want to acknowledge that I really love this part of the medieval overhaul. These dungeons are one of the coolest parts, in my opinion. But because they are so long, they take up probably a whole episode's worth. If we find another one, I might keep it very, very concise in what I show you guys. Nevertheless, I hope you've enjoyed. But with that, we're off, heading home with our nearly overburdened caravan. Arriving home not long later to a very rainy evening and a wandering dragon. But we won't be out taming it in the rain. We would wait until the morning, sending Chalcedon to feed it some corn. Our initial attempt failed, but in another twist, we would use Chalcedon's Dragon Bond ability to quickly tame it while it was shooting a firebolt at us. What a strange meeting these two have had. This dragon, who actually needs a name in the comments below if you guys have got one, would try to kill his rider on their first meeting, but then in an instant realized that he was making a mistake and decided to bond with him. Sounds like the start of a very interesting tale. I think for the rest of the episode we're going to begin focusing on some base building, since we need a place to store everything we've looted from the ruins. To keep things off, we're going to get working on the road from the wall to our bridge, which I'm not sure why we didn't do this earlier. This will help us bring things into town when we come back from adventures. Next, we will begin something that I've been waiting to do since the beginning of the playthrough, and that is building a massive castle that will take up this entire land. Now, normally I wouldn't do something like this, but I'm sort of going to show you how I was doing the planning in the background while I talk a little bit. As I said, I've been wanting to build this since the start of the series, as what is a medieval playthrough without a massive castle for our leader and nobles to live in? I did a little bit of this planning off camera because it was going to be difficult to try to fit everything in. But you should, if I edit this correctly, now be seeing my sort of initial plan for the castle. And also if I edit this correctly, it'll have little labels where everything is. We should have a hospital, a library, a large entry hall with some of our relics and art, a place where the throne room is going to be, a dining room for, parties at the castle. There should also be a kitchen as well as a cold storage, which are both near the dining room for convenience, as well as a couple of little rooms for our nobles. This planning, as you can see though, is of course not finished, so I'll continue working on it while playing. Oh yeah, and we also have massive stacks of granite that we've been compiling pretty much since we settled here, which should go towards this castle. But back to the actual game, Chantalise is pregnant, having collapsed on the floor, and is being carried to the hospital because she was nearly giving birth just next to the river. I think I completely forgot to mention this, and I think I lost it somewhere in the editing between the castle and the dungeon. And with her childbirth complete, we would have our first baby girl in the colony. I decided to go with the name Nadine. As always, names are appreciated, but I do like Nadine, so if nobody's got any good suggestions, I will just keep that. But it seems we're putting the children to work as well, as Robert's the one that's going to be taking care of his little sister. Where's he taking them? Oh, he's just decided to go and sit in the church with his baby sister. It's actually pretty sweet. But what would also be sweet to cap off this episode would be if we could tame this true dragon that has been hunting in our area. Chalcedon would approach it while it waited in the small cave, attempting to tame it, while Robert decided to come and watch. This child really has no fear. And of course, the taming failed, and the dragon's after us now. I would draft everyone up. With these two beginning to run, the dragon stopped for a second, which let us get away a little bit. Our forces would engage this massive dragon out the front of the wall. This beast was far larger than any of our current dragons, but of course our people would band together as always to defend each other. And after quite some time, we would down the beast. Thankfully, not too many people were hurt. In the hopes of taming and informing a bond with the beast, Ryo would show it mercy, rescuing it, taking it into one of the towers as it was bleeding badly and would need healing quickly. Bryn would take the first shift in tending to the dragon while Ryo watched closely over her until her flea wart ran out, which left Ryo to tend throughout the night and into the morning. Unfortunately, during my focus on the dragon, I realized that Larry had passed away due to blood loss after the dragon battle. The dragon whelp would take him outside. I wasn't sure why it took him out here, but I realized that I was planning opening some graves in this area. I also then looked away just for a second and realized that Cryos had eaten him. You stupid dragon. Actually, in hindsight, I think that they were plotting together because they really wanted to eat Larry. It does sort of suck that we want to be able to have a funeral for him, but hopefully his sacrifice has gained us the most powerful dragon that we've seen thus far. But to find out, you have to tune in to the next episode. Yes, I'm leaving it on another cliffhanger. You're just going to have to deal with it. That's my thing now. No, I'm only joking, of course, but I do want to keep these videos not too long and want to put more of a focus on the dragon in the next episode, so we're going to leave it here for today. As always, I want to thank you all for watching. I'm having so much fun playing this series at the moment. I hope you guys are all still enjoying as well. I'll see you in the next episode, hopefully. Goodbye.
Thank you for your honesty. I have confirmed your information. I'm sorry for what I'm about to do. I hope you find peace, Taya. You see, peace has never been an option for me. My whole life I've been at war. But I will put an end to it. Finally, nobody else will have to die. Just like my parents.
But I wonder if they would even recognize me now.